Tran, Liu Funk, Paul Andre Michaels, Soon Park, Hyun Jung Grant, Jo-Ann Yoo, and Suncha Kim. They are why we are here today. I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. I'm Ravi Reddy, the Associate Director for Advocacy and Policy at the Asian American Federation. We represent the collective voice of more than 70 nonprofits serving 1.3 million Asian New Yorkers. We're all here today because we are in pain and we are angry. Members of our community were murdered in cold blood on Tuesday. They were Asian, they were women, they were elders, and they were matriarchs. They were immigrants working towards a better life. We're here because the Asian American community is once again forced to reckon with our vulnerability and our mortality. Within our communities, within our workplaces, continually worried that the racist, sexist stereotypes forced upon us may be acted upon violently at any moment. We're here because this is visceral, because this is personal for every single one of us. As we build community tonight, we'll hear from leaders and community organizations who are doing the hard lift of keeping our community safe. And we'll be around to continue the work after Tuesday's tragedy becomes a memory, becomes a part of our collective memory, a part of our story and our history. We'll also be hearing from performers who have made an art of giving voice to the oppressed, to the voiceless, and the traumatized. It's also important that this space be one for all of us to be able to express ourselves. In an effort to that end, we'll be having 15 to 20 minutes at the end of this vigil for attendees to step up to this mic and speak for a couple minutes each, to speak their truth, to express their feelings on what has happened to us. But before we get started tonight, I want us to present with the emotions we're bringing to this vigil, and to consider the families who have only just begun to live in a world without their loved ones. With a moment of silence.
Can you stop moving, please?
With that, I'd like to introduce our executive director, if she is here. If not, we are not quite yet, but we are thankful to have with us the pastor of the Morningside United Methodist Church, Pastor Charles Ryu, a Korean American immigrant and a real-life member of our family, to open this peace vigil with some words of spirituality.
Thank you all for coming out this evening. Our emotions are very high and intense that words fail to express properly. Yet we are here to honor the victims of the heinous crime, that of racism, misogyny, and as a community resolved to rise up and show the world what a healing and transforming community of justice and love and peace we all are. I'm so glad that we began with a silent moment. Let me intone a chant for their eternal rest and continue on with my prayer tonight. Though I am a Christian pastor, speak Christian language, I'm sure all of you who are of different spiritual and wisdom tradition can translate into your own language as well. If you would, if it's not inconvenient, if you could, in your mind or physically hold your hands together, even bow a little bit. Very Asian gesture of peace, non-violence, and goodwill. Into your hands, O merciful Savior, We commend these your 8 servants, the 7 of them women of Asian descent, who perished in Atlanta. Acknowledge, we humbly beseech you, sheep of your own fold, lambs of your own flock, sinners of your own redeeming. Receive them into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the glorious company of the saints of light. Amen. 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 Amen.
Thank you so much for those poignant words, Pastor. Anti-Asian xenophobia and the violence at its roots is a neighborhood, city, state, and federal issue. It's an issue of relationships between us as citizens, and it's a policy issue. It'll require work amongst ourselves, but it'll also require holding elected leaders and office holders at every level, in every position of power, accountable to our needs and the needs of the most vulnerable in our community, especially right now, when we are collectively grieving for those of our own. This work is as much about holding ourselves accountable as it is holding those in power accountable. To that end, I'd like to invite our senior senator, Charles Schumer.
Thank you, Ravi. First, our hearts ache. They ache for the families of those who were lost to the brutal slaying in Atlanta. Our hearts ache to the so many, unfortunately, so many Asian Americans who have been assaulted and brutalized over the last year. Our hearts ache for the millions of Asian Americans who walk down the street looking over their shoulders, wondering if someone might be doing harm to them as they walk down the streets and go into their homes. This Asian American community is the best of America. The best of America. People who work hard, love their families, create businesses, join churches, and make our country and our city so wonderful. And we say to the bigots, you will not prevail. Unfortunately, over the last 4 years, we have had a president who too many people, when they listened to him, thought bigotry was okay, even violence was okay. But now he is no longer president. And we, the people of America, of every different background and philosophy and race and creed and gender and orientation, come together and say, we will not let bigotry prevail against Asian Americans or any American. We know that violence and bigotry against one is violence and bigotry against all. We stand firm. We stand firm. We speak to the better angels of America. We say we love you, we love everybody. We are against violence and will fight violence with every inch of with every atom in our bones. And we, not the bigots, not those who are violent, will win this fight and prevail. Thank you.
Thank you. The only thing I'll say about this poem is that I wrote it about 5 years ago, about the previous 10 years of my life. So this is sort of about the past 15 years, but probably more. True American sentences. 1. He looks at my name tag and asks, "What's your real name?" I tell him, that Cindy is what's printed on my birth certificate. What's your middle name? I knew it was in there somewhere. 2. On Franklin Avenue, he bumps into me and says, "Watch where you're going." 3. I stand at a bus stop and an old man turns to me. "I fought in Nam. You're here because of me." 4. On Grand, he bumps into me and shoves me to the side. 5. In an IKEA parking lot, I yield. He signals me to roll down the window of my U-Haul truck, laughs, "Not too bad for an Asian woman," and speeds away. 6. On University Avenue, he bumps into me and says, "You're in my way." 7. In his office, I hear my therapist call me beautiful and call himself colorblind. He says my anger at him is really anger at my parents. He calls this transference. 8. On Broadway, he bumps into me and says, "Didn't see you." 9. My friend has brain cancer and enrolls in a clinical trial. He asks if I would sleep with him before he dies. When I say no, he asks if I have any Asian friends who could help him. 10. On Central Avenue, he bumps into me and says, "Bitch." 11. A friend lends money to help me move to college. Halfway through paying him back, he says he can't help but feel like I owe him something else. 12. My mentor encourages me to embrace my youth and pursue writing. After I turned 21, he asked if he could take nude photos of me. 13. I stand in the aisle at the end of a Delta flight. There's no room in front of me. There's no room behind me. A man gets up and discovers room above my shoulder for his elbow, room in front of my rib cage for his carry-on, and room above my toes for his Oxford. I say, "Ouch." He says, "Well, excuse me." 14. No is a miracle word that cured him of his brain cancer and kept saving my life. 15. Last week, I heard a woman say, "I will only ever be someone's first Asian girlfriend," and I felt power. 16. Every time a white man went out of my life got better. 17. That's right.
You guys, thank you so much for coming out. It's not easy to ask for the community to get together during a global pandemic. I'm going to try to do this without crying. Thank you all so much for coming and being with us today to bear witness to one of the nightmares that have come to life. To be a woman, to be an immigrant, to be Asian, to work during a global pandemic is to risk so much. Tuesday, a white supremacist drove to 3 different Asian spots and killed 8 people. 6 of them who look like me, looks like so many of us here. We're here because we all know that our community deserves better. Our workers deserve better. Our mothers, sisters, aunts, and daughters deserve better. We are here standing together because we are sad, we are angry, and we are exhausted by the roller coaster ride of emotions that we've all been dealing with today. Community, I want you to give yourselves a round of applause for just being here and just existing. Make yourselves be heard. Six of our sisters were murdered on Tuesday. Whether their murders are classified as hate crimes or not, our community knows hate, senses they hate, and worries because of the hate. These women, like all of us, embrace multiple identities as immigrants, as workers, as mothers and daughters, as aunts and sisters, as Americans. As a Korean American immigrant myself, it's close to home. 6 of our sisters were murdered on Tuesday. As a leader of the Asian American Federation, tasked with making sure our needs aren't forgotten and our voices heard in every conversation that concern our community's well-being, the ugliness of Tuesday is hard. 6 of our sisters were murdered Tuesday. Tonight, we'll process our anger and sadness together as a family and resolve to work together to make sure that our demands are heard and our community is invisible no more. I want to thank our friends who selflessly gave their time to join us. When we asked, everyone said, of course we'll be there to stand together with you. That is how we build community. 6 of our sisters were murdered on Tuesday. Let's never forget their names. Their senseless deaths that took 8 dead people for our country to open their eyes to our pain. Thank you all so much. You guys, give yourselves a round of applause. Really big, big, big. Make your voices be heard so that nobody ever forgets that we deserve better.
No more hate!
No more hate! No more hate! No more hate! No more hate! No more hate!
No more hate!
Thank you guys.
Thank you all so much for being here. I've been called a lot of things in my life. I've been called Asian a lot. It's true, I'm Asian. I've been Asian my whole life. And a lot of people laugh when I say that. I'm serious. And this past year, you know, when I grew up here in New York City, from when I was a young child, I got a lot of this nonsense. But now that I'm in my 50s, I thought that most of this was in my past. But this past year has been surreal, really. The number of reports and incidents we have heard. People being avoided on the streets, in the stores, homes being vandalized, businesses and restaurants being boycotted, people getting disinfectant sprayed on them, told to go back to China. Are you gonna give me COVID? Maybe you should sit a little further away. People being shoved violently from behind, getting sent to the hospital. People having their faces slashed on the subways. And now we see this killing spree. It wasn't in our city, but it could very well have been right here in New York, because we have been witness to so many incidents this past year. And, you know, we're here to gather to mourn the loss of these sisters in Atlanta. It is almost, and I really hope this is the culmination of the hate and bigotry that Asian Americans have faced. I pray that there will not have to be another vigil in this seemingly never-ending spate of hate against Asian Americans. But we know these things will continue to happen until we speak out more and more. That's why we're gathered right here in Union Square in the middle of New York City. We're here to say our hearts and prayers are with those victims and their families. You know, we are also here to say that we want justice. We want justice not for revenge purposes. We want justice so that this doesn't keep happening over and over and over again.
Right.
You know, that killer who took 8 lives. And by the way, people say, oh, most of them were Asian American. That killer was only looking for Asian Americans to kill. But for me, it's even worse. The response from government, from that sheriff's office, to not immediately say this was a hate crime, because it damn well was a hate crime. This killer drove miles and miles, got out of his car, calmly, as showed in the videos, had his gun, and went into an Asian business looking to kill Asians. And then he did it again. Drove to another Asian business to kill more Asians, and then yet a third Asian business to kill Asian Americans. And there's a question as to whether this is a hate crime. That is absolutely outrageous. This is the kind of thing that continues the violence and attacks against Asian Americans all across this country. And then for the sheriff to somehow excuse this person by saying, oh, he had a bad day. And that he was trying to address his sex addiction. I mean, this is from the sheriff's office. Further, an agency of government further marginalizing and objectifying Asian Americans, specifically Asian American women. How can we let this stand? That sheriff's office got to go. This is what we need to do to not only bring justice for those women killed in Atlanta, but to prevent this ongoing violence.
Good evening, New York. Today, I don't stand before you as an activist. And I say to my dear Asian American sisters and brothers that I stand here before you as your neighbor. I went to school with you in Sunset Park. I played with you in the streets of New York City. And when the government decided that Arab Americans were white, I told them I wasn't white, I was Asian. I was West Asian. And I was welcomed into the arms of the Asian American community.
Proud to be Asian.
I feel heartbroken because as a Muslim American, I know what it feels like to come from a community that is targeted for who you are. I've been to too many funerals and I've sat at too many bedsides of people harmed just for looking a different way, for being of a different faith. So I'm here today in solidarity with you. Our immigrant families, our parents came to these United States of America for a better life, so we can have a better life. And our parents deserve to come home to us safely at night. They deserve to live in a country where they feel safe and can live with full dignity. The Asian American community is not experiencing discrimination for the first time.
That's right.
And I'm here to inform those who believe that Donald Trump introduced racism and discrimination to Asian people that they need to learn their history.
That's right.
Asian communities have been discriminated against since they came to this country. Learn about the lynchings of Chinese. When they said they were going to ban the Muslims, I believed them because we excluded the Chinese, and legislators in this country in our history sat back idly, if not in fact participated in it. On this US soil, we interned Japanese Americans. We stripped Japanese people from their homes and put them in concentration camps on this US soil.
That's right.
So the otherization of Asian communities is part and parcel of these United States of America. So I am tired of the words. I don't need the thoughts and prayers, and neither do our Asian community. Our communities would not thrive without our Asian neighbors, without the entrepreneurship of our Asian neighbors. Every time there's a closed storefront in our neighborhoods, our Asian sisters and brothers open it up and bring back to the economies of the neighborhoods that we live in. They deserve safety. And what I came here to say to our Asian American sisters and brothers is that we are all we got. I do not put my safety in the safety of government, of elected officials. We are all we got. I'm asking you all to not be bystanders.
That's
When
right.
you are at a train station, standing at a bus stop, walking in the street, and you see someone saying something that you don't agree with, or assaulting someone, or trying to harm someone, intimidate someone, stand up.
That's
Say something. Do not be a bystander. I commit to you that wherever I am, that I will stand up, that I will fight, that I will say what needs to be said and do what needs to be done so that you can live in a country, that your children can live in a country where they can be safe. But not only do I want them to survive, I want you to thrive in these United States of America.
That's right.
I'm going to leave you with this quote. It's from an Aboriginal woman named Leela Watson. And she said, if you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come here because you believe that your liberation is bound up with mine, let us work together. My Asian sisters and brothers, my liberation is bound up with yours. And when you are not free, I am not free, and no one is free. And so our collective liberation is bound up together. I'm calling on your elders and your leaders. Police are not a solution. Police are not the solution. Do not ask for more police and criminalization in our communities.
That's right.
Come to our mosques. Come to our leaders. Reach out to your neighbors. We will protect you. We will protect each other. Solidarity and love to you all.
who are fighting for the identity as Asian, as Black, as Arab, as Latinx, as people who believe that our queerness cannot be pathologized, that our bodies can no longer be criminalized, that we will not stand for the police. Also to intervene on the generational trauma that all of our people continue to experience. Yet again, Asian migrant women had to be on the front lines as the ones that were murdered, to remind state officials, to remind the cops, to remind the United States government that Asian people are dying. 6 months ago, New York City wasn't talking about anti-violence targeting Asian communities on the news. It was very minimal. 6 months ago, we weren't talking about the rise of hate in relationship to how Black Lives Matter builds with Asian communities to understand colonization and white supremacy.
We as people of color have paid the streets in our blood. We have come from